Alright guys, we're getting ready to take you on Old Savannah tours.
It's Pretty White Bus.
In the Pretty White Bus. It's an on and off tour. You can do different ones, but we did the on and off one. We're going to do a full lap, and then you can come back and stop wherever you want to and get off for a while. So we'll take you guys along with us. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, it's Jada.
Hey, it's Jason.
And welcome to the Pet It Life.
It'll be a beautiful day to go exploring around our historic district. Now, directly in front of us is the official visitor center for Savannah. Inside, they also have our history museum with over 10,000 artifacts of Savannah history. Most of that comes from the siege of Savannah, one of the battles that was fought here during the American Revolution. But inside, they also have one of the benches from the movie Forrest Gump, an Oscar that was won by Johnny Mercer, as well as a life-size carriage that Juliet Gordon Lowe, the founder of the Girl Scouts, used to ride in. Now, her grandfather, William Washington Gordon, he actually found the railroad system here in Savannah. It was called the Central Railroad, put in based off right now the location we're in right now. It was put in primarily to bring cotton from the southern states here into Savannah to be shipped out around the world. So over here to our left where the Visitor Center and History Museum is located, that building was once a cotton warehouse. The building over here to our right, that was a cotton warehouse as well, but it's now owned by a private local university. It was founded here in Savannah, along with Savannah College of Art and Design. So anyway, let's go ahead and start off with a little history first. Now, Georgia is the 13th and last colony of the United States, named after King George II. Savannah is the very first city in the state of Georgia. It is also the very first planned city in North America. Now, when I say planned, our founding father, General James Oglethorpe, actually planned, designed, and laid out the city while he was still living over in England. He laid out 24 wards. We call them squares today. We only have 22 of those intact. 21 for a very long time, but we got L Square back in 2005, and we'll see that a little later on. Now, once Oglethorpe had completely designed the city the way he wanted it, while still living over in England, the people he elected to bring over with him, well, they were all in prison. They were actually in a debtor's prison because back in those days, if you didn't pay your bills and went to debt, you actually had to go to prison. So Oglethorpe loaded 120 of those prisoners onto the galley ship Anne. They sailed across the Atlantic Ocean up the Savannah River to where we're located here today. Now, when they arrived, he only had 4 laws. The first law would have been no slavery. He thought that would create a lazy working class. The second would have been no alcohol, meaning no hard spirits or liquor. Beer and wine would have been fine, however, it was very seldom used back then. The third law, well, the third law would have been no lawyers allowed. Yeah, that wouldn't last very long. And the fourth law would have been no Jewish or Catholic people allowed either. Now, shortly after Oglethorpe did arrive here in Savannah, the only doctor they had on board passed away. However, an immigrant ship from Portugal sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, somehow navigated the Savannah River and found Oglethorpe. Folks, they did have a doctor on board, but there was one big problem.
Thunderbird is pretty awesome.
Every single person on that ship was Jewish. So guess who was welcome to Savannah that time?
It's like a 50s style roadside hotel, but the inside's modernized.
In the United States, to build Israel. The reason Catholics realized that he was at war with Spain, and most of Spaniards back then were Catholic. In fact, Spain had already invaded Florida way before Oglethorpe arrived, so there were already Spaniards that were Catholic just south of where we're located here today. Now, we're coming up to the red light at Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and once we cross over MLK, we're going to be entering the largest historic district in the United States. Now, it goes all the way across to East Broad Street, all the way south to Forsyth Park, and all the way north to the Savannah River. Now, you will want to keep this in mind that the dividing point between east and west in our large historic district is Bull Street. Because if you're taking Bull Street going in another direction of either east or west, you'll notice the numbers on the buildings are the exact same. So, for example, if you were going to go to 400 West Bay Street for lunch today, you end up at 400 East Bay Street, found the hotel, not the restaurant you're looking for, well, you have to ask the abbreviation SCAD. So you're going to see a lot of scanning cars, buses, and buildings, and now you'll know what scan stands for. And coming up here to the right here, you can see the scan Oglethorpe House. It's going to be the brick building over here to our right with all the golden doors. That used to be the old Oglethorpe Pub Lodge. Savannah College of Art and Design has actually bought that building and converted those guest rooms into dormitories for their students. That's cool. And unlike the current dormitories you'll see in other college universities.
It's probably one of the coolest dorms you'll ever see.
Savannah College of Art and Design has grown tremendously since they were founded here in Savannah. They now have a campus in Atlanta, Georgia. They also have a campus in Paris, France, as well as one in Hong Kong. The next intersection we're going to be coming up to is going to be Bull Street. Like I said a moment ago, it's the dividing point between East and West, our historic district. And we'll be making a right-hand turn, taking it all the way down to Forsyth Park for the first part of our tour. As we go up to Bull Street and as I make the right-hand turn, folks, if you look out left-hand side of the trolley, across the intersection, you'll see a tan stucco building with brown shutters. Well, that is actually the birthplace of Juliet Gordon Lowe, the founder of the Girl Scouts. Now, in 1953, the Girl Scout organization actually purchased that building and made it into a museum. So you gotta think those Girl Scout cookie sales did pay off. Over here to our right is Independent Presbyterian Church. It's where Woodrow Wilson was buried. Now, if you're able to look to the very top of the steeple up there, that is the highest point in our historic district. No other building can be built any higher than that in the district. And from up there, if you can imagine a feather floating down, meandering around, all the way to the ground. Well, you probably saw that in the movie Forrest Gump. That's right, Forrest Gump was filmed here with hundreds and hundreds of other movies, and we'll talk about a few of those along our tour today. But as we come up here, and as I make the right-hand turn, they get to the other side down here over the weekend. Has not been replaced, but where the post is sitting right here to our left, where the Chippewa Square sign would have been, that's where actually Forrest Gump sat on his bench eating his box of chocolates. Now, they had 4 benches for the movie. One of those benches is our History Museum over the Visitor Center. One's in a museum in Universal Studios in Hollywood, California. One was auctioned off and one ended up lost. Nobody knows where it ended up. For the entire filming of the movie, they only used one out of those 4 benches. While they were doing the rest of the filming, they put all 4 of those benches into a warehouse, and when they went to go divvy them up and pass them out, the one bench that was used in the movie was in such perfect condition, nobody knows who got that actual bench. Maybe kind of hard to see when the cars parked over here to the right, but the iron fence is going to be close to the cars, close to the street, and will be close to us. It's known as our Presidents and Poets fence. And as we go by, maybe we'll recognize some of the presidents and poets, but what I really want you to look at more than anything else is that detailed ironwork. It's kind of phenomenal what they can make out of iron. We had a famous ironworker that lived here in Savannah by the name of William Kehoe, and we'll pass by his house a little bit later on the tour. But William Kehoe had a famous quote that anything that can be made out of wood, he can make it out of iron. So I'm going to point out some unique ironwork we have here in our historic district. First of all, the house on the right, take a look at the fish downspout down at the very bottom. It's made completely out of iron. Maybe kind of hard to see with the little blue car here in the tree, but if you look in between, you'll see it. You get a better view of one down here on the corner. They're also referred to as the dolphin spouts. I'm pretty sure you're not going to find those on Amazon Prime. But there she is, right down the corner like I promised. Over here to our left in the middle of Chippewa Square, you'll see our founding father, General James Oglethorpe. Now, the reason they place him in the square like that is anytime you have a statue, the statue needs to be facing the enemy. So the enemy at that time would have been the Spaniards that were Catholic down in Florida. Back King George II wanted to put a buffer between the Carolinas and the Spaniards of Florida, so he strategically placed Savannah where we're located here today. Now we're going to be coming up to stop number 2, and this is going to be our Chippewa Square stop. And up here at the stop on the right, you're going to see the Savannah Theater. Now the Savannah Theater is the oldest continuous running theater in North America. Folks, they've been running live shows continuous at this location for over 204 years. Kind of a long time. So if anybody let you off here at stop number 2, Chippewa Square, you're more welcome to. The second movie filmed in Savannah was Gator, starring Burt Reynolds. We're coming to a location where this movie actually got started. It was starring Julia Roberts and Dennis Quaid. Now, they were married in the movie. However, Dennis Quaid was having an affair on his wife, Julia Roberts. Going up here on the right, you're going to see the Six Pits Pub. That's where all the flags are located. In fact, in the window to the left of the red telephone booth, Dennis Quaid was sitting inside that window having cocktails with his girlfriend one evening. Julia Roberts heard about it. She was already dressed for bed, but that didn't stop her. She came rushing up here, and when she jumped out of the car, she was still in her housecoat and nightgown. Dennis Quaid saw her through the window right there, and he came rushing out to greet her. Well, folks, there wasn't a whole lot of greeting. There was a lot of arguing, fussing, and carrying on. All these folks started gathering around, listening and watching what was going on. They started spreading rumors. Folks, we know that is gossip. That's how they came up with the name of the movie, Something to Talk About. Now, if you haven't seen that movie, it really is a cute and wonderful movie, and a lot of the buildings we passed by on our tour today, we're actually showcasing that movie. It was filmed almost entirely on location, right here in Savannah. Coming next over here on the right, you're going to see this Middle Eastern looking building, and folks, you're not going to find another building that looks like that anywhere in our historic district. And it may be hard to believe, but at one time that used to be a Ford dealership. That's right, if you want to buy a Ford car here in Savannah, that's where you would have gone. That Henry Ford on the plantation just south of Savannah down in Richmond Hill. We're coming into stop number 3. That's going to be our Sorrel Wheat House stop. The Sorrel Wheat House is the house over here to the right. It's one of the many house museums we do have here in Savannah. And what you'll see in the house museum here is the same decor and furniture the original owners would have had, like Francis Sorrel. So if anybody let you get off here and stop number 3, our Sorrel Wheat House stop, you're more than welcome to. Nope. All right, we're going to keep moving along. Now here in Savannah, we actually refer to the Sorrel Wheat House as the Pumpkin House because the color is painted outside. That house is over 16,000 square feet. You may have actually heard of the Sorrel Wheat House before. It's one of the most haunted houses we have here in Savannah. You may have heard of Savannah as one of the most haunted cities in the United States. The Sorrel Wheat House has actually been featured on many, many different paranormal shows you may have actually seen on TV. Coming up next, directly in front of us, is going to be Madison Square. Now, the statue you see in the middle of Madison Square is for that of Sergeant William Jasper, was known for fighting the battles over in South Carolina during the American Revolution. Now, when the British took over Sullivan's Island in South Carolina, Sergeant William Jasper snuck in the middle of the night onto that island amongst all those British soldiers. He stole the American flag and brought it here to Savannah. Now, he was eventually killed during the siege of Savannah, carrying that flag, one of the bloodiest battles during the American Revolution, and that's why we now have a statue carrying the American flag over here at Madison Square. So the statue you see over there to our left is for that of Sergeant William Jasper. The house come up here to our right, that's the Green Meldrum House. Now, when General Sherman was in town during the Civil War, the Green Meldrum House was his headquarters. That's where he stayed. While he was here, there was no fighting whatsoever. In fact, the Confederate soldiers pretty much just laid down their weapons and said, here, take us over. They had heard with Sherman and the Union troops had done the Columbia and Charleston, South Carolina, where they had burnt those cities, basically destroying them all the way down the ground. But folks, Sherman would have never done that here. Because he is quoted as saying that Savannah was the most beautiful city he'd ever laid his eyes on. So beautiful, in fact, he actually gave it to President Abraham Lincoln as a Christmas gift. Not a bad gift to get your own city for Christmas, I must say. Coming up next, we're crossing over Jones Street, and as we cross over Jones, I'm going to ask you to look to your right and your left. Because Southern Living Magazine has always said that Jones Street is the most beautiful street in the South. Now, I find it hard to disagree with these beautiful brick drives, as well as these live oak wall and Spanish malls hanging over. You actually see some of the beautiful homes lining the street there. They've heard the term keeping up with the Joneses. Well, that's where that started, right there on Jones Street. Like I said, that is the most beautiful street in the South, according to Southern Living Magazine. Coming up next, directly in front of us, is going to be Monterey Square. Now, before I start talking about the monument in Monterey Square, you know when the fighting broke out during the American Revolution, the man that was in charge was General George Washington. Second in charge would have been Nathaniel Greene, and I'm pretty sure you've heard of those two names before. There's something would have happened to those two gentlemen you may not have known who would have been third in charge. His name was General Casimir Pulaski. He was the highest-ranking foreign official during the American Revolution, and he was also the founder of the American Cavalry. Now, they thought that Casimir Pulaski had died on a ship called the Wasp, to sink off the coast of Savannah. However, while they were doing some excavation work here, they came across a metal box, and when they opened that metal box, they found human remains. Inscribed in the lid of that box was the name Pulaski. So the state decided they would do DNA testing, found out they were the remains of Casimir Pulaski, so they put his remains back into that same box and buried it over here next to his monument in Monterey Square. So the monument you see over here to our left is for that of General Casimir Pulaski. The brick house coming up here over here to our right is going to be the Mercer Williams house. Now, many people assume Johnny Mercer lived there, but actually no Mercer has ever lived there. It's originally named after Hugh Mercer that designed the house. But this house is most famous for a gentleman named Jim Williams that lived there. He was a famous art collector and art dealer. You know, they actually wrote a book and did a movie about him called The Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. You may have heard of it. Now, in the window to the left of the front door is the parlor. That's where Jim Williams shot his lover, Danny Hanson, 4 times in the back, killing him. Ironically, Jim Williams was tried 4 times. He got off the first 3. He was convicted on the 4th. However, before he went to prison, he actually died of a heart attack in that house, just 2 feet away from where he shot Danny. Now, Jim Williams, attorney for all 4 of those trials, was a local attorney here in Savannah. He happened to be a very good friend of mine by the name of Sonny Seiler. Now, perhaps you've actually heard the name Sonny Seiler or the Seiler name before, because he's always been the owner of an English
ironwork around that's amazing.
Who's always been the mascot for the University of Georgia. And up here to our right, you'll see this white brick building. It used to be owned by his, it used to be his law offices. It's now owned by Richard Kessler, a famous boutique hotel owner and operator of boutique hotels all around the world. Known for all the variety of artwork he displays in those hotels. He actually has some of that artwork in his front yard. As we go by, look to your far right over here, you'll see a large wild boar fountain, and above and behind the little from the back, a very large bird bath in between the trees. Also got some dragons hanging off the side. And the front gate right here, what happens to be a replica of the front gate at Buckingham Palace.
Wow.
Coming out directly in front of us is going to be Forsyth Park.
Well, we're almost to
If
Forsyth
we
Park.
right-hand turn here, we're going to be leaving the historic district to go around the park. Now, if you notice the fountain directly in front of us, that fountain looks familiar. Well, there happens to be a replica of one in Peru, as well as one in Central Park, New York. Maybe hard to believe, but they actually bought that fountain out of a catalog. And no, I don't think it was Singers or JCPenney's back then. Keep looking at Mr. Kessler's house over here to the right. They've heard the TV series for The Walking Dead. They're filming that series in Austin, Texas, but they're filming their final season here in Savannah. They've used Mr. Kessler's house quite a bit for their upcoming episodes. So if you do watch for The Walking Dead, keep an eye out for Mr. Kessler's house. If you ever watched the last Halloween movie starring Jamie Lee Curtis called Halloween Ends, his house was featured in that movie as well quite a bit. They're also just started filming a movie before the writer's strike took place. It was called Journey Number 2, and the director for that was Clint Eastwood. He's been around town quite a bit. Now, a lot of people think that Savannah is a coastal city, and we're actually not. We're 18 miles by car out to Tybee Island, where our beaches are located, 14 miles by water out to the mouth of Savannah River into the Atlantic Ocean. So those of us that live in the historic district and those that live right outside, we don't go out to the beach as much as you might think. No, we come right here to Forsyth Park. Because over here where the fountain is located, we got this beautiful wooded and shaded area where we like to hammock up in the trees, do picnics in the park. It's just a wonderful place to come relax in. A little bit further down, you'll see these large open fields where we like to let out in the sun, play kickball and volleyball, run our dogs, and chase our children. You know, it's just a wonderful area to situate in Savannah where we can come and enjoy the outdoors without having to go all the way out to the beach. Slow down for just a moment, folks. I want to direct your attention in the middle of Forsyth Park. You'll see our Confederate monument. To the very top up there, you'll see a Confederate soldier. You can notice the way he's facing. Well, he's actually facing north, because that's who the enemy for the South would have been during the Civil War. We're almost to the end of Forsyth Park, and we're going to circle around and head back towards the historic district. But while we're out here, I want to point out the Telfair Hospital. Now, the Telfairs were at one point were the wealthiest family in the state of Georgia, living primarily up in the Augusta area. But Mary Telfair, man, she loved Savannah. She also loved the arts and would travel all around the world to see different art exhibits and art displays. But she always felt that Savannah was her home and she kept returning back. Now, Mary Telfair was the sole heir of all the Telfair wealth, so it funneled all straight down to her, making her the richest woman in the world during the Victorian era. Mary Telfair loved Savannah so much that when she passed away, she bequeathed all those riches to the city of Savannah here for the arts. So you'll see the Telfair family name predominantly here in our historic district. Back we have the Telfair collection museums and house museums, and I'll point those out as we pass by a little bit later in the tour. But coming up down here on the corner to our right, past the brown brick building, you'll see this larger cream or off-white stucco and brick building. This is going to be the old Telfair Hospital. Now, it's no longer a hospital anymore. It's actually a retirement center. But the Telfair Hospital was unique in the fact that it was a women's-only hospital. Males were not allowed inside, so men, we couldn't even go in the front door. In fact, ladies, if you had a child that was born in there, they would actually bring that child up to the windows right here on the first floor. Gentlemen, we can walk up to those windows from the outside. That way we'd be able to see our newborn child.
Wow.
That's kind of wild.
Nobody's going to ask, huh? Folks, I said no males were allowed in there, but what do you think might happen if a baby boy was born in there? He's a male, right? Well, let me tell you what they did. They gave that rascal 3 days and he had to get out, no matter what. You know, they were actually pretty strict about that policy back then. Now, in the mid to late 1800s, here in Savannah, they had the yellow fever epidemic. It was so bad here, they actually referred to it as the devil's disease. Now, the Telfair Hospital was still strictly a women's-only hospital. There were hospitals located inside and right outside our historic district. There were for both men and women. Sorry, guys, there was never one dedicated just for men. Now, to keep those that were infected with the yellow fever away from those that were not infected, well, they did something kind of unusual here. No, they didn't require them to wear masks. No, what they actually did is build a very complex tunnel system. Why is that unusual? Well, we are close to the coast, but here in Savannah, this part of the country, we have a lot of sand, and I mean a lot of sand in our soil. Many of those tunnels actually did collapse, killing people in them, but many of them have held up, and I'm very thankful for that because we're actually driving over some of those tunnels right now. Now, the red brick building coming up here to our left, that is the Mansion Hotel. That's the very first boutique hotel that Richard Kessler built here in Savannah in the 1990s. And the reason I talk about Kessler so much is he was born and raised here in Savannah. He was actually an orphan child raised out of Bethesda Boys Home near Idaho. That's one of the finest boys' homes in the world. He's done very well for himself. Like I said, he's opened hundreds and hundreds of boutique hotels all around the world. Over half a dozen right here in Savannah. Bring all this amazing artwork to display in those hotels. Marriott has now asked him to design their new boutique collection of hotels. They're opening up right now. In fact, joining me open the very first one here in Savannah down on River Street called the JW Marriott. And right next door to it is Plant Riverside, where Kessler put in all these wonderful restaurants and amazing shopping.
Okay, so Kessler did the JW Marriott.
And where Plant Riverside is located on River Street.
That's cool.
This will be the start of River Street on our west end. Now, going back to the hospitals, folks, there are no more hospitals located inside or even right outside our historic district anymore. Like I said, the Delaware Hospital is now a retirement center. We're going to be passing in front of the old Cathedral Hospital building. Now, Canada's part of the St. Joseph's Canada system, way out on the south side of Savannah, where all of our hospitals are now located. But personally, I think the old Canada Hospital building is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of hard for me to imagine they want you to launch this building as a hospital. Now you're going to be able to see the front entrance of Canada Hospital because coming up here to our right is going to be Goodwin Street, and Goodwin Street actually dead ends in the front entrance of Candler. So as we go by, if you look all the way down Goodwin Street to the very end down there, at the building at the very end, and that building beautiful. Hard to believe it used to be a hospital, right? When you look at it, doesn't it just make you feel better?
That's it. That was a hospital.
Already.
That's awesome.
So we're coming into stop number 1. This is right here on River Street. Now you're going to get a better look of Canada Hospital coming up here to our right. There she is. Now, Savannah College of Art and Design is bought and now owns Canada Hospital. They've actually taken this hospital.
Okay, that's a better view of it.
For their faculty and classrooms for their students, so you can kind of visualize how to utilize.
This is a better view of that hospital.
Also coming up here on the right, take a look at this beautiful live oak tree. And look how some of the limbs come down, almost touch the ground with all that Spanish moss.
Oh, wow.
It's called the Candler Oak. It happens to be one of the oldest live oaks we have here. It's well over 300 years old.
Candler Oak.
So folks, we are fixing to cross back in the historic district. We're heading to stop number 5 next. This is where the Massey Heritage Center is located. Now, Peter Massey, a local businessman here in the Empire, donated $5,000 to the city of Savannah for its very first public school. Turns out it was the very first public school in all of North America. Now, they opened the doors in 1856. It ran as a public school until 1974. However, they did shut this school down for a period of time during those years. The school was actually utilized as an overflow hospital for the yellow fever. That's just how bad it was here in Savannah. But they officially closed the doors in 1974 as a public school, reopened again in 1979 as a museum, and still ran as a museum up to this day. Inside, they've actually taken one of the rooms and dedicated it to having a 3D overview of all the squares the way that Uncle North had originally envisioned. They also have one of the original classrooms in there with the same decor and furnishings like the desk, as well as some of the same curriculum they would have actually taught in the mid to late 1800s. So the building coming up here in the corner to our right is the Massey Heritage Center, formerly known as Massey School. This will be stop number 5 of our tour today.
So this is the famous fountain at Forsyth Park. We'll walk around it, let y'all get. There's copies of this in Peru and Paris, right? New York. I'm sorry, New York. Only 3 in existence.
We want to of our local popular restaurants we do have here in Savannah.
Larry's.
Now, they're only open for breakfast, lunch, and brunch, but while I've eaten there, I've actually seen some celebrities eating there.
We've heard
as
about this
well.
place before, too.
I've actually seen Clint Eastwood and Robert Redford. In fact, one day when I was getting ready to walk in, I saw Sandra Bullock coming out. She happened to be in town filming the movie, The Forces of Nature, with Ben Affleck. In fact, Sandra Bullock fell in love with Savannah so much, she actually bought a summer home out on Tybee Island. And it happened to be on the same street, just a little further down from where John Cougar Mellencamp owns his summer home as well. Coming up directly in front of us is going to be Lafayette Square. And as we come up to Lafayette, folks, if you look out left-hand side of the trolley at the house in the corner where the flags are located, that's the Andrew Lowe House. It's another one of our beautiful house museums. But the Andrew Lowe House is actually the house that Juliette Gordon Lowe grew up in. That's where she started the Girl Scouts. The house we saw earlier where the Girl Scout Museum is located, well, that was just her birthplace only. Coming up directly in front of us is going to be the Hamlin and Turner House. Now there's the Hamlin and Turner Inn, and you'll get a better view of it on the right-hand side of the trolley as we go by. Now, the Hamlin and Turner House is the very first house here in Savannah that had electricity. It's also the same house that Walt Disney actually got the idea of the design he wanted for the Haunted Mansion. I actually see a lot of similarities between the two. You know, many people don't realize that Walt Disney actually wanted to build Disney World first here in Savannah.
That's awesome.
The only reason he did not is he couldn't get the price of land the way he wanted it or needed it, and that is the only reason Disney World ended up further south down in Florida. Now, directly in front of us is St. John's the Baptist Cathedral, the Basilica here. Now we have the oldest Catholic congregation here in the state of Georgia. This would have been the oldest cathedral, but it did burn down in 1898. Everything burned down except for the outer walls and the spires. Everything on the inside was actually burnt to a complete ash. Remarkably, they had rebuilt and opened a year later in 1899, and since then they've been doing some refurbishing work.
That's incredible.
I was going to tell you, personally, I think the St. John's Cathedral may be one of the most beautiful cathedrals or even churches you may see in the world. I'm seeing the Sistine Chapel, Notre Dame, and the Vatican. I'll rank up there pretty close to those. It will be open about 4:30 this afternoon if you want to take a look. If you want to go in there right now, we are actually coming into stop number 6, and this will be our cathedral stop. So if anybody might get off here, you are now more than welcome.
This is one of the places we took advantage of the on-off tour. This is the cathedral. It was beautiful. We took some pictures and video of it, and I just hope you guys enjoy it as much as we do, and I would recommend going and seeing it in person.
The video's not going to do this justice. But this is beautiful.
Welcome to the Cathedral Basilica. You may take pictures. You're welcome to walk around. Let me know if you have questions.
I'm glad we got to come in here this time.
Oh wow, look above us. The organ. They told us they play the organ on Saturdays. That's incredible. Yeah.
growing pains, a lot of differences, and the way gentlemen handled differences back in those days is they would typically have a duel. Now here in Savannah, we're very fortunate that we have the original dueling grounds. At those locations, over 250 documented duels. The most famous being with a gentleman named Bud Woodette. Bud Woodette was the other side of the Declaration of Independence, and I'm sorry to say the poor Bud did not win his duel while he was here. But come up here to our right, you're going to see this grassy area. In the middle, you'll see 2 live oak trees. Now, the gentlemen that were dueling will actually face one another between those 2 live oaks. Turn around 8-10 spaces away from one another. Turn around quickly, fire their pistols. Folks, one will be standing up and one will be laying down.
That's pretty cool.
The playground was back there,
Between them 2 trees.
The folks, that gentleman laying down, he didn't have far to go. Because right next door is Colonial Cemetery. How is that for convenience? Now, it seems like Savannah thought of everything back then. Now, they say that Colonial Cemetery might be one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States, and many claim it might be the most haunted in the world. Now, Colonial Cemetery used to be much, much larger than what you see there today. Before Savannah started expanding, Colonial Cemetery actually went across the street here, and much further west where the buildings are to the left of the Trolley, and much, much further north where the buildings are in front of Colonial Cemetery. They did take some of the headstones that were sitting out here and place them over the Colonial Cemetery as you see it now. But folks, what they did move underneath the buildings and the asphalt we're driving over are all the caskets with the dead bodies. That's why Savannah is known as being built over the dead, or I guess could think driving over the dead, because that's what we're doing right now. So if you have any of the gold chill up your spine as we go around Colonial Cemetery, got my answer for you right there. Now we're coming up to Oglethorpe Avenue, and we're going to make a right onto Oglethorpe.
Yeah. Yeah, the entrance here is amazing.
Folks, if you look out the left-hand side of the trolley, in the median between the 2 flagpoles, you'll see a large bell. That's our fire bell, Big Duke. Now, Big Duke used to get a big workout back in the day because the majority of these buildings and homes you see were actually built out of wood before they started using other materials. And here
there's the entrance to the cemetery.
Materials that come specifically out of the state of Georgia on the exterior outside their buildings. Back in that makes an example. That one out a little bit later in the tour. It's kind of hard to put a focus on the outside of the building. It's even hard for me to believe that it's still there. But I'll answer Nathaniel Green. But you're not going to find his statue of Miami here. It's actually over in Johnson Square. Remember we saw Oglethorpe in Chippewa Square, not Oglethorpe Square? Well, for some reason, when the city officials were placing the statues and monuments, they decided not to place them in the same square as they're named after it, and we really don't know why. We also don't know why there's no Spanish moss hanging up in these live oak trees, and there's no Spanish moss hanging up in the live oaks where Nathaniel Green's monument is located. It's kind of a strange anomaly that's taken place that even horticulturists haven't been able to explain to us, because typically Spanish moss loves and thrives being in live oak trees all the time. Now, the wind will sometimes blow up in these live oaks, and, people actually honestly try to throw up in these live oaks all the time. Doesn't stay there very long, a couple of days, maybe a week at the longest, but it'll fall down the other trees, bushes, and shrubs. It will stay there for as long as it wants, but for some reason it'll not stay up in the live oaks in either one of these squares for any amount of time.
That's wild.
Now, we'll talk more about that Spanish moss once we get over to where Nathaniel Green's monument is located. But right now, we're headed next to stop number 7, and this is where the world-famous Pirate's House restaurant is located. But also over here is the Herb House at Trustee's Garden and the Seafarers Inn. Now, all 3 of these buildings were built at very, very different times, but they were built very, very close to one another. In fact, they're now joined together because the Pirate's House actually utilized these 2 other buildings as dining rooms for a restaurant. Now, if you happen to go to the Pirate's House for lunch or dinner while you're visiting here, and folks, I will tell you the food in there is absolutely wonderful. But if you do go in there, please take a little additional time to go in the original Pirate's House restaurant into that building and take a look down to that old rum cellar. There's a lot of history associated with that rum cellar, as well as the tunnel that led from there out to the Savannah River. So our next stop will be at stop number 7 at our Pirate's House stop, and folks will be there in just a moment. Stuck here at the So we are now going into stop number 7. This will be our Pirate's House stop. So if anybody'd like to get off here, you are now more than welcome. Now we got somebody that's going to come on and say hello to you folks. Alright, welcome aboard.
Ahoy, mates, and welcome to the world-famous Pirate's House. Ace is my name, cards are my game. I'm a rogue, buccaneer, philosopher, comforter, lifelong sailor of the high seas. Before I get started with my story today, I need your help with something. It's kind of twofold. One, it'll help me to save my voice, and this will help you to release your inner pirate. I bet you never knew you had one, did you? All right, when I do this, arr, I need you to join in with me, okay? Let's try it out. Here we go. Arr. Very good. You might even get louder, all right? Down here on the corner is the world-famous Pirate's House restaurant. Back in my day, that's where we pirates used to gather. We didn't like it very much, though, because all they would serve us was beer and wine. We had a saying back then, maybe you've heard of it today: beer is clear, wine is fine, but liquor is quicker. All right, so there was all this rum down in the Caribbean, and we pirates became entrepreneurs, and we started importing that rum right back here to Savannah for our enjoyment, until the government stepped in. They said it was illegal, and that it was called smuggling. We didn't like the word smuggling. We like the word imported, because imported sounds better than smuggling, don't you agree? Yeah. So, since we could no longer run our operation on the dock secretively, safely, and securely anymore, we got smart, and we started digging tunnels underneath the restaurant, down through the 40-foot bluff, and out to the Savannah River. And that's how we successfully imported our rum to what is now known as the rum cellar in the basement of the Pirate's House restaurant. Pretty cool story, huh? Pretty neat piece of information to have. Well, remember, you might be on Jeopardy one day. Who knows? And hey, about 2 months ago, over the summer, we had someone that had been on Jeopardy on one of our very trolleys. So see, you never do really know, do you? They're bookish.
Yeah, they are. I picked them up at the library this morning.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, you know what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm going to go get them drunk and take them back to the library. Those stories they're reading are not going to be the same, I can promise you that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah. Well, have you told them about this?
No, I'm getting ready to, though.
Well, make sure you tell them they wouldn't want to miss out on that.
No, not at all.
All right, mates, I gotta be hauling. I got a fresh batch of Cuban rum that I gotta go deal with. If you know what I mean. Y'all come back and see us, all right? Bye-bye.
Thank you very, very much. Now, folks, this doesn't happen very often. In fact, this is the first time I've been able to do this in 2 weeks. But there's no cars parked up here, and with the restaurant and the Airbnbs around here, these three parking spots are always taken. So I'm going to move up here a little bit further and talk about these three buildings. It's going to waste a little more of your time, but I kind of think it's worth it. I find these buildings kind of be interesting as well. Now, first of all, the whitewashed brick building over here to our right, that is the Seafarers Inn. That's where Robert Louis Stevenson wrote the book Treasure Island. Now, if you ever read the book Treasure Island, you know it's all about pirates. And typically when you think about pirates, you only think about pirates being down the Caribbean, right? Well, that's not true or factual whatsoever. That's been all made up through film, TV, and movies. Because here in Savannah, we had more than double the amount of pirates they ever had down the Caribbean. In fact, the most famous pirate that's on the waterways here, I'm pretty sure you've heard of his name before. His name was Blackbeard. In fact, they named an island just south of Savannah called Blackbeard Island. Also at the Seafarers Inn, I want you to take a look at the window and the door right there, and I want you to look at the top of the frame of the window and the door, and look at that beautiful craftsmanship. Folks, they weren't drunk when they did that. They actually did that for a specific reason. That reason is a ghost or spirit cannot pass through a crooked window or a crooked door. Now, you may not have known that, but we all know that's not good for insulation purposes. So you want to flatten both the window and the door there. So the next best thing you do is paint your shutters and your door that color that ain't really green and it ain't really blue either. Folks, the name of that color is Haint Blue. It's the most popular color in the South to paint your shutters, door, or even your old house if you ghosts and spirits out. Sherwin Williams knows all about the color of Haint Blue, and Haint happens to be the color and detour for ghosts or spirit as well. So that took care of the Seafarers Inn right there. Now, right here where the Iron Gate, this half-brick wall is, that building's kind of pushed or shoved back there a little bit. Well, that building was here before the Seafarers Inn or the Pirate's House. That is the Herb House of Trustees Garden, and that's the very first building built here in the state of Georgia. And last but definitely not least, the gray building down here on the corner with the blue doors and the blue shutters, that is the world-famous Pirate's House. And it's the same Pirate's House that talked about the book Treasure Island. Now, before it became a world-class restaurant, the Pirate's House was a very, very popular tavern back in the day. Before I start talking about it being a tavern, folks, you gotta realize the number one product being shipped out of North America in those days would have been cotton. Now, Savannah supplied over 80% of the cotton around the world, making Savannah a very, very large
80%.
business center. gentlemen throughout the country, in fact, from all around the world, we're now coming to us, Savannah, to capitalize and get in on that business. Now, at the end of a very long, hard work day, those same gentlemen with a lot of the get a tapper back there, have a few cocktails after work, kind of kick back and relax. The owners and operators at that time were extremely friendly. They could always spot a new fresh face that was visiting here in Savannah. And to make those gentlemen feel welcome, what they would typically like to do is invite them down to that old rum cellar. They're very proud of those big kings of rum and like to show them off. In fact, if they took a liking to some of those gentlemen, they might even offer them some free rum while they were down there. Well, folks, if those gentlemen drink too much and passed out, well, there would be a pirate waiting. They would scoop them up, take them through that tunnel, out to the Savannah River to be put on the ship for a cruise around the world. Folks, those gentlemen would not come back to Savannah. Probably never come back to the States, and most likely, it's sad but true, they probably never set foot on solid ground again. Now, that's called being shanghaied, and yes, that is how your pirate captains got their crews for pirate vessels while they were here in Savannah. Coming up next, across the street over here to our right, you'll see a brick building that says prescriptions and drugs. It says prescriptions and drugs because it was always once a pharmacy. Now the candy pharmacy is now a gift shop. Now, one of the most popular drugs is your doctor would write you a prescription for back in those days. Well, it happened to be the main ingredient in another product that was invented here in the state of Georgia. That product was Coca-Cola. The main ingredient Coca-Cola back then would have been what, folks? Somebody help me out. Cocaine. Now, can you imagine your doctor writing you a prescription, you walk into a pharmacy like that and walking out with a bag of cocaine? Folks, excuse my pun when I say this, but that just really blows my mind. It really does. But it was actually used as a pain reliever back then. Now, I don't know this, but I've had a lot of people tell me in the past, it's much better than ibuprofen or aspirin. Anybody out here know about that? No, I'm not going to admit to it either, are you? Coming next to the brick house over here to the right is another one of our beautiful house museums. That's the Isaiah Davenport house. Now, he moved that house in 1820. That would be the decor you would see in there. But that date is not as significant as 1955. Because in 55, the city of Savannah had slated to have the Davenport house demolished and torn all the way down. 2 hours before they were going to start the demolition, 7 ladies stood up the city of Savannah, saved this house, and that's how the Savannah Historic Foundation began.
Wow, that's pretty
now,
cool.
before Isaiah Davenport house, take a look at the downspout. It's made out of iron. Some people say that on the very bottom, it looks like a big mouth bass or a catfish. But it is conveniently located because directly in front of us is the William Keogh house. It's now a bed and breakfast called the Keogh House Inn. Now, William Keogh was that famous iron worker I was telling you about earlier. Had the famous quote that anything that can be made out of wood, he can make it out of iron. Well, folks, all that whole front entranceway, as well as the trim around all the windows, as well as the veranda we're going to pass by on the right-hand side, well, it's all made out of iron and painted to look like wood. Isn't that beautiful, folks? Now, they say it's very haunted in there, especially downstairs. They have 2 really haunted rooms. That's probably because before that was a bed and breakfast, that actually used to be the Goethe Funeral Home. How do I know that? Well, my in-laws are the Goethes. Over here to the back, you'll see an iron gate, and on that iron gate, some stairs will take you downstairs to a door. Through the door down there is where they would take all the dead bodies down the mortuary. The 2 rooms I was telling you about that were so haunted, well, those are the same 2 rooms where they started learning and experimenting with embalming bodies. Now, folks, you got to remember back in those days, typically when they bury somebody, they would tie a bell to their toe. If the bell started ringing in the middle of the night, that means they had buried somebody alive and had to go dig them up. So you can only imagine what was going on in those 2 rooms while they were trying to figure out how to get that embalming fluid into those bodies. And, folks, you're more than welcome to stay there. You're just not going to catch me there, especially at night. Ain't going to happen. Coming up next is going to be stop number 8. This whole block over here is actually the Owens Thomas house. It's part of the Telfair collection of house museums. There's the decor and furnishing inside this house is absolutely beautiful. They do a fantastic tour here. In fact, the architect William J., he actually built a bridge inside that house from one side to the other. Something very unique and unusual in architecture back in those days. But here we are in stop number 8, the Owens Thomas house. So if anybody'd like to get off here, you're now more welcome. All right, we'll keep moving along then. Directly in front of us is going to be Oglethorpe Square, but we're not going to find anything Oglethorpe here. We already saw a statue over in Chippewa Square. But speaking of Oglethorpe, when he arrived here in Savannah in February of 1733, he met the Indian chief Tomachichi. Now, Tomachichi was the chief of the Yamacraw Indians, but many don't realize when Oglethorpe arrived, Tomachichi happened to be the chief of the Creek Indians as well. Because when the Creek chief passed away suddenly and very unexpectedly, the Creeks could not come to an agreement of who they thought would be best suited to be their next Indian chief. Tamachichi was so well respected, such a wonderful chief for the Yamacraw. You know, the Creeks actually made him their chief as well. Now, that's probably something you never heard of before. You may have heard of a tribe taking over or overtaking another Indian tribe, but never one Indian tribe just utilized another tribe's chief like that. It just would not have been done. Now, if you know anything about the Creek Indians, then you would know that they would hate when the white man would come. But when he came, he took whatever he wanted by force. So there was a lot of Indian bloodshed, specifically Creek blood. But when Oglethorpe arrived, there was no bloodshed. In fact, there was no fighting whatsoever. Tamachichi and Oglethorpe had such a wonderful working relationship, it turned into a lifelong friendship that Tamachichi actually picked up both those Indian tribes, relocated a little further west, so that Oglethorpe could have this beautiful, pristine property to build the city of Savannah on that he had planned and designed while he was still living over in England. Thank you all very much. Now, Tamachichi, he stood 7 feet tall and lived to be 95 years old. Two amazing achievements for back in those days. Coming up next to our left is going to be Wright Square, and Tamachichi is actually buried in Wright Square. Look at the far left hand of Wright Square, you'll see a large boulder, that's his resting place. The monument in the middle is for William Washington Gordon. He was the founder of the railroad system out here in Savannah. He was also the grandfather of Juliet Gordon Lowe, the founder of the Girl Scouts. Now, Wright Square happens to be one of our most haunted squares. Take one of our haunted tours with Old Savannah Tours, and you'll find out why Alice Riley has made it so haunted, and why there's only Spanish walls hanging in half the live oak trees and not the other half. And as we go by, if Wright Square in particular actually looks a little familiar to you, or especially the white marble building, we're going to pass over here on the left, the old Federal Post Office courthouse. Maybe kind of hard to see with the truck and the scaffolding work, might be hard to recognize. But you may have seen this white marble building as well as Wright Square many, many times in a golf movie called The Legend of Bagger Vance. It was starring Will Smith and Matt Damon, directed by Robert Redford. Now, all of the buildings you see in that movie were actually filmed on location out here in Savannah. The golfing, however, it was actually filmed on an island in South Carolina called Key Island. Key Island is just a little further south of where Charleston is located.
That's neat. That's a good movie, too. The Legend of Bagger Vance. It's really good.
The next square we're going to be going up to is going to be Telfair Square, named after the Telfair family. And on Telfair Square, there are going to be two Telfair museums we're going to see. The first one we're going to see is the old Telfair Hall. It is now the Telfair Museum and Academy. Now, the Telfair Museum is more of a traditional type of museum. Also happens to be the oldest museum in the South. So we'll get here at stop number 9. And in front of the Telfair Museum, you're going to see these 5 beautiful statues, and they are going to be in order from left to right. Rubens, Raphael, Phineas, Michelangelo, and Rembrandt. Those 5 are actually known as the Angels of the Arts. So if anybody'd like to get off here and stop at number 9, you're more than welcome to. No. We're going to keep moving along. And before I pull away from the stop here, you see the banner hanging with a picture of the bird girl. If she looks familiar to you, she's been in a lot of different movies. She was actually on the cover of the book The Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. She was in Bonaventure Cemetery. She became very famous. She started becoming fragile. You know, people started climbing all over to get photo opportunities, and statues and monuments made out of any type of material are not made for that. So sadly, they had to relocate her from Bonaventure Cemetery into the Telfair Museum for safekeeping. Coming up directly in front of us is the Jepson Center, and this is the newest addition to the Telfair collection of museums. Now, this museum is actually an interactive museum for both children and adults. So when one goes to the Jepson Center, actually has the opportunity to play around with some of the artwork. They do have on display there. Now, folks, you may or may not have noticed, but here in our historic district, we don't have many chain restaurants. We do have some like Ruth Chris, Five Guys, Joe's Crab Shack, and there are some others. But all the other chain restaurants we did have in our historic district, well, they were kind of forced out. Because for some reason, we don't know why this is taking place here in Savannah. We've had all these chefs from all around the world relocate here and open up restaurants. In fact, some of the chain restaurants that left the historic district said they were leaving because they didn't feel like they were able to compete with some of these chefs. But some of the chefs have actually worked in some of the finest hotels and restaurants in the world. What they've learned there, and right here in Savannah, kind of mix it up with our southern cuisine and southern food. So you may see southern dishes you've had or seen elsewhere, but they have a very different twist on them here in Savannah. We now see the Food Networks from all around the world coming to Savannah all the time now. So we've got a lot of new international exposure we haven't had in the past, but we're very thankful for. But if you are looking for like an Olive Garden, Outback, Chili's, or Longhorn, something like that, we do have those available. They're just way out on the south side of Savannah, and on the west side of Savannah, on the other side of I-95 out there, just out here in our historic district. Next, we're going to be crossing over Broad Street. Broad Street is spelled B-R-O-U-G-H-T-O-N. It's kind of like our Main Street here. We don't have a street called Main Street here in Savannah. On Broad Street, you'll find stores like the Gap and Ale Republic, H&M. There's a Walgreens on Broad Street. Some really fantastic restaurants on Broad Street, but Broad Street's a little more known for its little nice little southern boutique shops. So ladies, if you're in the market for a new southern dress or a new southern hat, you'll be able to find it right here on Broad Street. Gentlemen, if you need a new seersucker suit, you can find it right here on Broad Street as well. Didn't really need to say that last part. I just want to say the word seersucker. Kind of rolls off your tongue, you know. Coming out directly in front of us is going to be Ellis Square, and this is the one square we got back in 2005. On the left-hand side of Ellis Square, there's a 6-block area. It's very popular here in our historic district, known as City Market. City Market houses some wonderful restaurants, some amazing shopping, art galleries, and wonderful nightlife. There's a couple of museums located around City Market. Our closest stop to City Market will be our last stop of the tour today. It's stop number 14 at Franklin Square. I'll point that out to you once we get there a little bit later on. Now, we did have a statue of Johnny Mercer here in Ellis Square. He was damaged really significantly during the St. Patrick's Day festivities and has not been put back yet. Hopefully we'll get him back here in the square and not put back into a museum. Now, I do like to talk about Johnny Mercer. He's actually known as the Young Son of Savannah. He's most famous for winning 6 Oscars for 6 different songs. Probably the most famous song that he won an Oscar for was called Moon River. It was actually the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. Another song that he won an Oscar for, and you've probably heard of this one before, but nowadays they only seem to play around Halloween time. It was called Jeepers Creepers. And many people don't realize that Johnny Mercer was actually the founder of Capitol Records in the early 1940s.
Oh, wow.
Now, coming up down here at the corner to our left with the black and white on him, we're going to be passing by. This is our most famous chef's restaurant. That's the Lady and Sons. That's Paula Dean's restaurant. Now, Paula Dean and both of her sons, Jamie and Bobby, have had many shows on the Food Network. You may have seen them on there before. They got a lot of cookbooks out. Right now, they're actually open a lot of restaurants all throughout the country, and most of those restaurants will have a southern or a seafood theme to them. So keep a lookout in your neck of the woods. You may see one of the restaurants popping up very soon. The next square we're coming up to is Johnson Square. This is the first square that Oglethorpe put in. Happens to be the largest of all the squares. In the middle of Johnson Square, you'll see the monument for Nathaniel Green, but what you won't see hanging in these live oak trees is any Spanish balls. Just like there was those Spanish balls hanging up in the live oaks over in Green Square, named after Nathaniel Green. Now, I found out many people really don't know what Spanish moss is. I've had some people tell me they thought it might be a weed, maybe even a parasite killing the tree. Sometimes it looks that way. It's not even one of those. In fact, Spanish moss is not a moss at all. It's actually part of the pineapple family. Now, we don't grow pineapples here, but we sure have a lot of Spanish moss hanging up in the trees. And like I said earlier, most of the live oak trees, those are the trees that loves and thrives in the most. Just not the live oaks in either one of these squares affiliated with Nathaniel Green. Something kind of crazy and strange is taking place here. Now, a lot of us oak poles actually refer to Johnson Square as the Banker Square, because every single building you see around this whole square is a bank building except for one. That's going to be the one we pass by over here to our left. That is Christ Church. Christ Church happens to be where Juliette Gordon Lowe and Johnny Mercer both used to attend church services on Sunday. It's also where they had their funeral services once they passed away. Now, the very first minister at Christ Church, you may recognize his name because after he left Savannah, he was actually the founder of the Methodist Church. His name was John Wesley. The next square we're coming to is going to be Rebel Square. And in the middle of Rebel Square, you'll see the statue of John Wesley. This is actually the square that he lived on while he was the first minister at Christ Church. So as we go by and look at the middle of the square, you'll be able to see his statue. There he is. Now, you know, most people do recognize that John Wesley was the Methodist Church. But what many people don't realize is that he and his brother Charles Wesley, well, they actually formed and founded the very first hymnal, and they also started the very first Sunday school. That's to be kind of neat about those two gentlemen. Now, if you look all the way through the square, through the tree line on to the other side, you'll see a pink building over there. That pink building over there is our most famous restaurant we have here in Savannah. That's the old Savannah Pink House. Now, they say it's about a 2 to 3 month waiting list to be able to eat the main dining rooms. But you can still eat there while you're here. Downstairs they have the tavern, same exact menu they have upstairs. It's just first come, first serve. So you may have to wait a little bit to be seated in there. But folks, let me tell you what, the food in there is definitely worth the wait. Especially that scored platter, that is definitely my favorite. Now, if you're not on a strict schedule here, you may want to give them a call. I have that long of a reservation period. They do have cancellations that pop up quite often, so you might be able to get in there on one of those. Come around the corner to our right over here. It's going to be stop number 10. This will be our Reynolds Square stop. This is also our closest stop to stop number 12. We're going to stop number 11 yet, but this is our closest stop to stop number 12. Like I said, it's closed off at the Cotton Exchange Bell. So if you want to see the Cotton Exchange Bell, it's across Bay Street here to your left, about a half a block on the right-hand side, hanging the gazebo, wherever they want it as well. So I'll point out Factors Walk as we head down the ramp down to River Street here in just a moment. Now, before we head down the ramp down to River Street, can you tell me what kind of stones on the ramp that we're getting ready to drive over? A lot of people think they're cobblestones. They're actually not.
Ballast stones.
Have a few cocktails. You probably call them stumble stones. But what they actually are ballast stones. They were actually put in the cargo compartments of ships to ballast the weight the ship down the water. You know, a ship has to be sunk in the water to a certain level to be able to sail. If a ship is too buoyant or sits on top of the water, it's not going to go very far at all. So when you really think about these stones we're driving over have actually come from all around the world, Europe, Africa, and Asia. Because when the ships arrived here in Savannah, they pulled these stones out of those cargo compartments, started paving the streets here in Savannah, as you can see. Because whatever parts they put back in those cargo compartments, mainly cotton back in those days, that's what would ballast to weight the ship down to be able to sail back overseas. Can't see it to the left because of the food truck here, but if you look to your right, you'll see the outrage where the cab walks over the top. That's not the Factors Walk that we were talking about. That's where the bankers would inspect the quantity of cotton and negotiate the price of cotton. Directly in front of us is the Savannah River. It's also our shipping channel. Now, right here on River Street, we are 14 miles from the mouth of the Savannah River out to the Atlantic Ocean. But we still get a 6 amount of time that comes in here every day. You don't know that much about times. That is a very significant time to come this far inland. And as I make the right-hand turn here, if you look out left-hand side of the trolley, you'll see the Talmadge Bridge going over the Savannah River. The ship that's underneath with the blue hull there, that is actually referred to as a ro-ro ship, because anything that is put on or taken off that ship is either rolled on or rolled off, hence the name ro-ro. Now, many people don't realize that Savannah is actually the 4th largest and busiest container port in the United States. Behind Los Angeles and Long Beach, California, New York, and then little old Savannah. Now we're concentrating on our shipping channel via Savannah River here, about 14 miles out to the mouth of the Savannah River into the Atlantic Ocean to maintain a depth of 47 feet. And by doing so, we can handle 90% of the ships from around the world. The reason we can't handle the other 10% is because the bridge I pointed out, the Talmadge Bridge, is too low. Now they've been talking for years and years and years about putting a new higher bridge in. And if they ever did that, the Transport Authority has actually said, we find the road to be the 2nd busiest and largest container port in the United States, second only to Los Angeles, California. So coming up here to our left is going to be stop number 11, our stop down here on River Street. So if anybody'd like to get off here, you are now more than welcome. So, all right, we'll keep moving then. Now, the stones you see down here on River Street, they're a little more uniform shaped. They almost look like stone bricks. But these are ballast stones as well. They actually came out of the cargo compartments of military ships. Because a military ship had to have a specific weight to be able to sail as fast as it possibly could, especially chasing all those power ships that were walking in the waterways back then. Next is going to be Moreno Park. On the left-hand side of Moreno Park, and on the left-hand side of the trolley, there's a statue that I might want to point out. Now, the first statue you see over here to our left is for that of Florence Spartus. You may know her as the Waving Girl. Now, Florence met a seafaring gentleman. They fell madly in love. In fact, he promised Florence that when he returned back from sea, the day we get married. So Florence came up with the idea she would wave a white handkerchief by day, a white lantern by night, to every single ship that came into the port of Savannah, hoping her loved one would be on one of those ships. Folks, she never missed a ship. But she did it for 44 years. He never returned, and she never married. It's kind of a sad story. The monument you see over here to our left, that is the Olympic torch from the 1996 Olympics. Now, the host city for the 96 Olympics was Atlanta, Georgia. But here in Savannah, we actually have the rowing and the yachting events. Now, they were not held in the Savannah River. They were out there held near the Wilmington River in Wausau Sound, near Wilmington Island. A lot of people speculate the reason they weren't held in the Savannah River is because of all the ships that are coming into the Alonzo port here. But it's actually because of all the dredging they are doing to maintain that depth of 47 feet. By doing all that dredging, it's changed the undercurrent. It's always changing the undercurrents and under tides to make the Savannah River one of the most deadliest rivers we now have here in the United States. We're getting back out here on Bay Street, and coming up here to our right is going to be Emmett Park. Now, Emmett Park is the largest park we have here in our historic district. We saw Forsyth Park earlier, much larger, but it's right outside the historic district. Coming up here to our right in Emmett Park, first you're going to see the Korean Memorial. It's going to be the bottom of the eagle on the top. Past the flagpole down here, you'll see the Vietnam War Memorial. As we go by, you see it's the shape of Vietnam. And right past that, you'll see this large Irish Celtic cross. A large Irish Catholic population we have here. Here in Florence, the St. Patrick's Day Parade and festivities. And here in Savannah, we actually have the second largest St. Patrick's Day Parade in the United States, second only to New York City. We're going to be able to see the non-exchange bell, but I'll point it out here in a moment. So we come out here to our right and gazebo. Now, this bell was very seldom rang for special occasions. It was rang for fires, but it was always rang for the start and into business here in Savannah. Mainly for those gentlemen we were talking about earlier, known as factors. Like I said, today's terminology, a factor would probably be known as a commodities trader. Buying the cotton at a low price, turn around and marking it up significantly to be sold overseas, like a commodities trader would do. If folks ever done their trading that rings a bell for the start and into business every day, they got the idea from Savannah, and that is the New York Stock Exchange. So coming up here after the construction work on the right, you'll see a gazebo, and in the middle of that gazebo is the Stock Exchange bell. So it's hanging in the gazebo right here to our right. Here's the Stock Exchange bell. The next building coming here to our right is going to be Savannah City Hall. Now I'll talk more about City Hall as we come to stop number 13. 13 actually circles or loops all the way around. So you'll be able to see what I'm talking about at City Hall. Now as we go up the red light up here, kind of look over here to the right.
It may take us on
far enough. I think we should be. There's somebody sitting on it at the where the white model bench is located. Well, where they place that white model bench is actually where Oglethorpe spent his very first night here in Savannah in February 1733. It's also the same location where he met the Yamakwa chief, Tamachichi, the very first time as well. So we're going to swing it here to stop number 13, and I want to direct your attention back to your right at City Hall, especially very, very top up there. Should be bright and shiny for us. Oh, it's still bright and shiny considering the trees. Now, you know I told you earlier that here in Savannah we like to use products that come specifically out of the state of Georgia on the exterior outside the buildings. Well, the domes of City Hall, that actually came out of the mountains of North Georgia, specifically the state of Dahlonega. That up there is actually 23 karat gold. It's kind of hard to believe up here gold on the outside of a building like that. It's even harder for me to imagine that it's still up there the way gold prices are.
23 karat gold.
The city of Dahlonega happens to be one of the first cities in the United States to have a gold rush. And the word Dahlonega, well, happens to be the Cherokee word for gold. Because the city of Dahlonega sits up in the mountains of North Georgia, very close to the North Carolina state line, right there where Cherokee, North Carolina is located. look out on the right-hand side of the trolley, going north on Montgomery Street, you're going to see where it says Plant Riverside District. When they put Plant Riverside in the JW Marriott, Kessler actually put it in the new elevator and user-friendly staircase that'll take you safe down to River Street. Plant Riverside is actually the start of River Street on our west end. They have some wonderful restaurants, some really nice upscale shopping, and there's some really unique artwork that's on display there. And that is going to be actually my favorite piece of artwork they do have there is actually a life-size dinosaur hanging from the ceiling. It's actually made completely out of chrome. Directly in front of us is Franklin Square, and for those that are looking for City Market's on the left-hand side of Franklin Square, and between Vinnie Van Gogh's and Belford's restaurants. So if anybody'd like to get off here at City Market, you're more than welcome to. If not, we're headed back to the Savannah Visitor Center.
We're gonna go back to the.
Well, Jada, what did you think about the on-off Old Savannah tour we did?
The tour bus was very nice,
It was.
and all the drivers we had were really good.
Yes. Very knowledgeable, very polite.
Absolutely.
Southern hospitality everywhere.
Yeah, got to see a lot of the city. We made a few little stops here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It was really nice. I liked the old Savannah.
Old Savannah tours. Yeah, the
their
white
buses were the white ones with the gold and the wood. Those were a lot nicer than some of the others that we've seen roaming around town. So I was glad that we picked those. So if you do decide to come and do it,
we do recommend.
Yeah, we'd recommend them.
The one, it was good. All right, well,
everybody was really knowledgeable.
Yes,
and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and right where you go get on it is the Savannah History Museum. And we went in there too, and
we strolled through there.
Yeah, I might put some stuff about that
in
another video. If not, it'll be in the overview video of this entire vacation.
Yep.
So, hope you guys enjoy it, and we would recommend it. I would think, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Worth every penny and your time.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
All righty.
Definitely.
We'll catch you on the next one.
As always, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for our next big adventure. Like, share, and subscribe to get that content.